The alignments connected directly to the Great Pyramid at Giza I call the Great Paths. I believe these alignments are evidence that the Great Pyramid was purposely placed at its location on Earth. This is the oldest map we have, called the Piri-Reis map, which shows navigation without latitude or longitude. Looks very much like a modern survey map and marks the Great Pyramid's importance. It reportedly was made from much earlier mapping and shows Antarctica's coastline as it would appear without ice. In part 5, I used the altar at Machu Picchu, called the Hitching Post of the Sun, as the starting point of a summer solstice line. It directly connects to Easter Island. Both the start and end of the Amazon River are included, and the line passes directly to the Great Pyramid at the center of the western face of the pyramid itself. And zooming out, you can see this alignment. Places of importance are located at about 2,500 miles from each other. I want to note that the alignment directly from the center of the eastern face takes us through the ancient city of Mohenjo-daro in India. This high-tech society was documented in a Hindu Veda, which says the god Shiva blasted the area, creating the Thar Desert with weapons of lightning, and testing shows corresponding radioactivity. This alignment continues at least through Angkor Wat. Although this line has been noted by other researchers, I believe the alignment is marking the spring and fall equinoxes. I also think this summer solstice line from Machu Picchu marks the galactic equator. That alignment occurs approximately every 26,000 years with the Earth's precession. Although I could find no evidence that latitude was used, I found that the ancient builders did place importance in the north-south alignment. So as we follow the path directly south from the center of the south face of the pyramid into Africa, we become aware that the Nile River is also followed, and the Great Pyramid is precisely placed at the Nile's exit and entrance, or beginning. On through the Egyptian and the Sudan's desert, the Nile in the path continues. Near Juba in the South Sudan is the starting tributary responsible for the Great Nile River. And here I'll show you. Juba is just south. You see the continuing tributary. The same circumstance I've also shown happens at Machu Picchu on the solstice path there. The south path continues after losing the Nile through Uganda into Tanzania near Lake Victoria, on through Zambia and into the country of Zimbabwe. The path crosses very near its capital city of Harare. The path continues through South Africa over an ancient artifact made famous by the researcher Michael Tellinger, called Adam's Calendar, also known as Enki's Calendar, is supposedly the first dedication of a standing stone calendar in the world. A pyramid is carved in one of the stones, and the path directly crosses the exact center altar of this artifact. Mr. Tellinger has also researched almost 200,000 ancient stone circles in South Africa that appear over areas with apparent evidence of mining activity in prehistoric times. This path crosses areas of highly technological civilizations and African empires lost in history after centuries of ravages of slavery's impact on the continent. Amazing. Exiting the land and continuing this path then leads over the exact spherical South Pole. As I zoom out and pan down, you'll see it's the exact center of the South Pole. Back to the Great Pyramid, we'll follow the northern path from the center of the north face through the middle of the Nile Delta. Then across the Mediterranean Sea to ancient Greece, entering near the city of Syrinx through Sparta and the ancient Macedonian Empire, where it exits into the Black Sea very near the city of Istanbul, Turkey. All of the areas this line crosses has historical impact. And there's Istanbul to the west, and it's also called the of Connection, approximately 100 miles from the path center, formerly called Constantinople, for the Roman Emperor Constantine, who ruled the empire from this city. Most people don't know that Constantinople was also called the city of Rome. And this is where the chariot races of Ben-Hur took place, not in Italy's Rome. There is a third Rome I will show upcoming. Constantinople is without a doubt the Rome that caused the distress in the biblical writings. Across the Black Sea, the northbound path enters the continent of Asia proper at a country known as the Ukraine and on into mid-Russia. Where you see the line from left to right is the summer solstice line continued from the Stonehenge monument in the United Kingdom. The north path from the Great Pyramid meets this at Lake Lagoda, very near St. Petersburg. This amazing city exhibits Greek, Roman, and Ottoman construction as previously detailed in another video. St. Petersburg itself is only 30 miles from the center of both of these lines. And zooming out to show the line from Stonehenge, we'll zoom out and follow the line back to Stonehenge proper so you can view the altar and the significance of its relationship. That is the superhenge, also discovered in 2015 on the summer solstice path itself as it continues northeast from the Stonehenge monument. You can see it passing through Denmark, Sweden. But back to the north path and its exit into the Barents Sea, I wanted to show the nearness to the Viking island home at Svalbard. At the closest, it's approximately 30 miles. On into the Arctic Ocean, we cross over the Earth's spherical North Pole. This is quite different from the magnetic pole and represents a knowledge of how the planet spins on its axis. And here we gotta flip the Earth. Now we're heading south into North America at Alaska. We zoom to show the continent's highest peak at Mount McKinley. And recent evidence was reported by journalist and researcher Linda Moulton Howe that an Alaskan pyramid was discovered in an area just southeast of Mount McKinley at a point that exactly corresponds to the north-south path from Giza. I wanted to show the significance of how close it is. When people are flying, they actually use mountains and other scenery as visual reference points. I'll zoom out to show the city of Anchorage, where we exit through the Gulf of Alaska and into the Pacific Ocean. Traveling south, I wanted to show how close this line is to Hawaii. There's the Hawaiian Islands, just about 300 miles away. But we continue through the Pacific, where a conjunction occurs, the meeting place of the Great Paths, exactly opposite of the Great Pyramid, then meeting the path over the South Pole of Antarctica. Back to the Great Pyramid to follow the line created from the southeast corner over the apex and crossing the northwest corner. Now, I mapped these lines in 2015. Since then, Google Earth has been altering the image, and instead of a direct overhead, it appears slightly canted. So my lines still represent the 2015 image. You notice that the paths seem to exactly cup the Nile Delta and exit into the Mediterranean Sea. At the northwest crossing point, we find the third city called Rome, also better known as Alexandria. Famous as an ancient harbor and its lighthouse as one of the ancient seven wonders of the world, it was also known for collecting the world's knowledge at its famous library. The destruction of Alexandria very likely set humanity back at least 1,000 years. Amazing artifacts now found just off the coast. Now we follow the path northeast to the coast of Israel at the city of Haifa, which according to cuneiform tablets was where the Anunnaki, the gods of Sumerian past, had a transport they used for return to their sky cities. Note Jerusalem to the south. That's where the tack represented is. Continuing on the path, though, brings us directly to Mount Hermon, where the biblical fallen angels came to earth. This is also where the story of Abraham's sacrifice took place. Passing close to Damascus into the Syrian wasteland, into Turkey, we cross directly over the peak of Mount Judi. This is a mountain that Muslims are adamant Noah's Ark came to land after the biblical Great Flood. And indeed, there are markings found on the satellite images that could evidence this story. Of note, Mount Judy is often confused with Mount Ararat. But what this alignment does is fully evidence that the placement of the Great Pyramid on Earth is a direct survey from the 2 points, Mount Judy and Mount Hermon, and Haifa. It cannot be coincidental. There I show you Mount Hermon. Continuing, I note Mount Ararat's proximity to the path at approximately 60 miles from its peak. Zoom out a little, and there's Ararat to the upper right hand of the screen itself. I wanted to show the distance between Mount Judy and Mount Hermon at about 450 miles. And now for a measurement of Ararat itself. It's approximately 60 miles from the center of this summer solstice line from the Great Pyramid. Now across the Caspian Sea from Azerbaijan towards Kazakhstan, bisecting the South Aral Sea. The recent discovery of geoglyphs and lines in Kazakhstan, similar to Nazca, Peru, is more proof of worldwide survey and intent. This was also discovered in 2015. Now on into Mongolia, crossing the line from Stonehenge again near the Russian border, continuing into northern China and exiting Asia through the Sea of Japan. And there it crosses a small bit of North Korea too. On into Japan and through the Honshu province. The line passes over the peak of Mount Azuma Ko-Fuji, also known locally as Fuji Junior, for the similar appearance to Mount Fuji in the south. This is also where an ancient flying craft had crashed and was documented in the ancient past in the Honshu province. And back to following this line into the Pacific Ocean, where the crossing of all the great paths occur. If the Great Pyramid is called the center of all land masses, then its opposite occurs at the center of all Earth's water. This path connects then with the most southern section of the South American continent. Passing over Patagonia, it quickly exits back to water through the center of the Golfo San Jorge. And I wanted to mark some of the land which seems to have areas marked like the polygonal construction I found by following these solstice paths around the world. Notice the coloration of the soil and is directly bounded by these polygonal lines. Across the Atlantic Ocean and back through West Africa, we come back to the Great Pyramid connection. The last path to follow is the winter solstice path out of Egypt through the length of the Red Sea, southeast, where it crosses over a small portion of the Arabian Peninsula and exits near the city of Aden. then crossing the Gulf of Aden and a portion of northeast Africa. On through the Indian Ocean, this line passes midway between Antarctica and South Australia continent. The nearest land this path meets is called Campbell Island, and I hope to note this in a future video. Aligning once again, it meets the ocean connection at the opposite side of the world from Giza. Going back to the Great Pyramid over Alexandria and into the Mediterranean Sea, this winter solstice line heads directly to the island of Crete. There's Alexandria again. Note the circular center. But the line itself crosses over a golf course. My lines could be off a little. Here we go to Crete, of classic Greek and Roman history and mythology. All these cities are famous in history, and there's just too much history to actually go through one by one. We zoom out and move on to Greece itself, passing near Argos and the highest mountain in the area, which is called Kyllini Oros. But I wanted to show you how it moves, how this line moves through the main portion of Greece itself. And we'll come back to Kyllini Oros, and I have to think that Oros is a word meaning gold too, which would tie the Anunnaki again. And there's Kyllini Oros, which was associated with the Egyptian god Thoth, who the Greek called Hermes. It is also pyramidal in shape, noting that Thoth takes credit for the construction of Giza some 35,000 years ago in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Believe that all these alignments to be proof of a purposeful survey for the placement of the Great Pyramid. And this is a perfect point for a triangulation from the other side at Mount Hermon and Mount Judy. We continue on this path through western Greece over the length of the Adriatic Sea, finally entering northern Italy about 100 miles south of Venice itself, and on into Switzerland. Then northern France. It passes approximately 30 miles from Paris itself. As I zoom out, you'll see Paris. And measuring the nearest point of Paris gives us about 30 miles. Very approximate to this winter solstice line. across the English Channel and into England, London, is about 50 miles to the east. This path connects over the altar at Stonehenge and passes through Wales into Ireland at a point near Galway. It exits into the North Atlantic, pointing to the North American continent at Newfoundland in Canada, or Newfoundland. Near Lake Melville, while closely following this path, I notice a geologic anomaly, a circular area surrounded by water, almost like a moat around a castle. But this path continues through a section of Canada and a portion of Lake Hudson, northwestern Michigan, and into Wisconsin, where over 200 effigy mounds were discovered by early settlers. One of the few remaining is a pyramidal mound community called Fort Aztlan, or Fort Aztlan, long theorized as the Aztlan of the Aztec creation story. Of note, the path crosses directly over the second pyramidal mound. Just as Giza copies Orion's belt, it also does here. This path continues through the heart of mid-eastern United States, passing directly over Kansas City. It aims for southwest Texas, near a place known for its phantom lights. And that is called Marfa, Texas. In 2015, following this winter solstice line from the Great Pyramid, I discovered that lines and geoglyphs existed on the Marfa Plateau, best seen from an altitude of about 15,000 feet, and when highlit, form symbols, animal representations, and a multitude of faces. Over the Big Bend of Texas, the path continues over Chihuahua, Mexico. And you'll see a strange city slightly northwest called Pakime. There are 4 different kinds of construction styles there, and it was suddenly abandoned, although the city itself is very high-tech. Into the Gulf of California near Los Mochis, in the water of the Gulf, lines have been discovered that eerily look like a submerged airport. Continuing, we cross over the southern tip of Baja, and we follow back into the Pacific. And there you see a small atoll, the nearest land that it's near. Again, to connect, with the connection from the opposite side of the world. Zooming in shows deformity on the ocean floor that could be a representation of Orion's belt. Thank you for your views.